Okay, here we are in part B. Part A was really basically just getting you familiar with the interface in Blender, just going back into some add-ons. I probably want to make sure certain add-ons I'm emphasizing. Here, what I'm showing is that there's additional add-ons that can be turned on for the Add Mesh category, and one of them is sort of these extra objects. And extra objects is things like rounded cubes. And rounded cubes are very nice for modeling, um, mechanical humanoid characters. I'm recording this narration actually after I made the video. And what happened, I remember, I thought I was going to get into things like rounded cubes, and I wanted to show, that we should have it turned on. And then I started to think, you know what, let's just stick with the basic shapes and not make everybody load too much. So just working with the basic cube here, all I'm doing now is using the scale tool that you see is highlighted in yellow there in that menu. It's the scale. And I'm just scaling along the axes. Now, I'm working around 0, 0, 0, and what I'm doing here, this is the torso modeling to have often models will have a hip bone frame of reference. It's called the root bone. Sometimes it's at the feet when a character is standing on the ground, but a lot of times for a humanoid biped character, you'll find it sort of ties in a little bit to the idea of center of gravity. So I wanted to keep within that to show this. I mean, it's a kind of good idea, and actually it happens, a lot that you'll bring a model in, and that's why I have where it happens where you bring a model in, and sometimes the character is sunk into the ground at the waist, because the two softwares, one software is saying, well, 0, 0, 0 is my ground plane, but the way the character was made, 0, 0, 0 is set at the hip bone or sort of waist level or at the belt buckle, kind of level. So you'll see a Blender tutorial where the plane at z equals 0 is the ground plane, and everybody uses that sort of grid there. The way I'm sunk down a little bit, I wanted to just do it so that the hip bone or the waist level is sort of set at 0, 0, 0 for reference. So yes, our legs will be below the z plane, okay, whereas z equals 0, and almost like the z equals 0 plane will kind of almost like split our character, top half, bottom half kind of thing. And I'm explaining that as I'm talking over this because it's visual here that you can see what I'm doing. I'm just selecting basic shapes and bringing them in, moving them around. Now, what I'm trying to show here is that I'm trying to keep it symmetrical by working at 0, 0, 0 as the sort of hip origin, and having the ability to look sort of straight on from negative y along the y, again, so it's almost looking like a sort of 2D optical illusion, really, because we're really supposed to be trying to work in 3D space. We're trying to maintain symmetry. Symmetry is very easy to maintain when you obviously build a torso and build a head, and building an arms is easy too. You'll see that in a moment. Why do we do it this way? It's just a standard, by the way. Some people ask, why don't I start with, if you understand a little bit about character modeling, you model a character and then you apply a rig to it. And the rig is like the skeleton that allows it to be posed and moved. Sometimes people may ask, why don't you start with the skeleton and just put sort of the flesh, if you will, or the sort of mass, on that. They basically figured out with the way computer graphics works, it's easier. It's like a sock puppet, you know. If you put a sock over your hand and make a, puppet, or it's like a diver, a scuba diver who's wearing a wetsuit. And even though using some parts to make a model, what we do here is first we make the model of the character, almost any way you want. But the idea is to basically then unify that mesh, okay, or that skin or those parts, so that it's just one object or one mesh. So again, the idea of a sock puppet. Um, Here what I'm showing is just clicking up there in the different views. That's the X-ray view, turning it off and on. So you have a wireframe view, that's a solid view, that's a shaded view, and this is the view with the light. Okay, so the light, that's why I left it in. That light is over on the side. Now going back, solid views are most, there I'm highlighting it, says solid. Solid view is the most useful sort of view when you're modeling. Typically it's easy. We're not doing any texturing yet, which is kind of giving it, color qualities or tones or skin tones or, metallic or, it's just gray. I mean, we'll do that later. First things first, you want to kind of get, it's like doing a clay statue almost. You just have a lump of clay or, or pieces of Lego and whatever, and you're just making it. Coming back to the idea of how rigging is done, or computer models or characters for 3D modeling or games or animations, you basically want to build a character, unify the mesh into one, and that's where that bool tool will come in, and then you have a single mesh, and then it gets rigged. And there is a way to rig in Blender. Rigify is very good. Mixamo, which is a sort of third party, it's free, it's from Adobe. You don't have to pay money. Adobe does want you to log in with an email and a username. It gets you great results, and gonna do it this way for starters, just to kind of give you the quickest way to get up and running. So as I've explained some of these points here while talking over, basically doing, start with the torso, added a head, cube this time, could be something else, sphere, something. Now the reason I stuck to cubes and sort of simple geometry, even the way that spheres are done, or sort of isospheres, or sort of different types of isometric spheres or anything, that's more geometry. So rounded things, and especially when you smooth them, what the program is actually doing is it's making a lot more polygons at smaller size, and basically, it's like when you have a lot of points to make a curve, and the more points you have, well, that's more geometry, the smoother it'll be. So just keeping to some basic shapes, and really trying to make this easy for people. Here's an important step. I'm right clicking here on the rectangular cube, and halfway down in the menu is the duplicate shapes, which is Shift D, and you do it and it looks like nothing happens, but then you move your mouse and you've got the same, it kind of grows out of it like it's a duplicate. Now the reason I do that is it's a quick way. I want to make here like the forearms, and I basically want to make them a smaller version of the sort of upper arms. So I'm just gonna, I duplicated them, and basically I'm going to scale them down, and I wanted to just show there again how, we're working with the symmetry here. Everything is with x equals 0, in terms of its origin. The origin is the little yellow dot at the middle of each shape. And you can see that that's in that sort of, those white circles, that dead bullseye white circle there. That's the origin of that piece. Now, it's in the, because I've raised it up, obviously it's not at the hip origin, but it's in the same, everything is around that sort of middle x equals 0 um, part of the, axes, right? So this will be important for later when we do the mirroring for the legs. Um, I want to quickly comment here. There's sometimes people will do things like use the bool tool to cut out holes in geometry. I don't want you to do that, or I don't recommend doing that, because then it's harder to do the union bool. When everything's selected, things will get kind of left out. The bool tool is a great tool. You can really use it for modeling, quite amazing. Just find a YouTube video on it, and you'll see. Um, Now here we basically come to the end of this part, pretty much. Um, it's just, that's it.